It is a warm day today. I'm just going to get my little remote control, turn my fan off so you can actually hear what I'm saying. I'm trying to think of some interesting and engaging content to put on my YouTube channel. As ever, it gives me something to do more than anything, and I probably watch the videos back myself as some kind of narcissistic monstrosity than anybody else bothers to watch them. But I hope that some people enjoy them and some people watch them, and even if it's just to ridicule me or laugh at how sort of benign and supine and subservient I've become over the last sort of 2 years, or maybe to look to me as a good example of how not to live your life in and out of psychiatric units, and generally kind of having a pretty disparate and unsuccessful, valueless existence. There's this thing called the Akashic record, right? And it's really interesting. Different cultures like talk about how you've got the memories of all your kind of lineage of families stored within your body and within your consciousness, and you can access them and you can tune into them and you can gain allegorical knowledge or abilities or physical traits or similar sociological or psychological progressive tendencies for all sorts of different things. I don't know if it's bullshit or not, basically. I mean, I don't think it's bullshit, but I do think it's bullshit. I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's like channeling. Like, I can do channeling and automatic writing. Like, I definitely know that exists. I'm not telepathic, but I can hear a voice in my head. It's like a thought in my head. It's not a voice. It's hard to explain. I don't hear voices in my head, but I get thoughts that come from somewhere and they ain't from inside my own brain. It's a bit like being in a cinema all your life and watching a movie. For a long time I was living in the audience watching the movie, and that was my whole life. And then about 3 years ago I suddenly made it up into the projection room, saw the cine film and the reels and the rushes, and spoke to the guy projecting the film. And now I kind of live in this omniscient kind of infinite existence whereby I've got these kind of technical and psychological, intellectual, clairsentient abilities that I didn't have before, and they're quite hard to hone and understand, and they're pretty scary, pretty weird, and maybe a big part of my mental illness. But I've done some research on it, as ever, so I'll read you the research and you can tell me what you think in the comments or by email. So let's have a look. The computational genome and the cosmic ledger, an interdisciplinary analysis of Akashic systems, declassified cognitive operations, and genomic foundation models. The Akashic record paradigm and its 4 culturally verifiable foundations. So, the concept of a universal, non-physical database that preserves all events, thoughts, and intent is a recurring archetype in comparative religion, metaphysics, and historical philosophy. Although the contemporary term Akashic records emerged from the 19th century Western esotericism, historically verifiable textual sources revealed that at least 4 ancient cultures developed sophisticated, independent systems representing a cosmic or divine ledger. The Sanskrit and the Theosophical etymology. So, the etymological origin of the modern concept lies in the Sanskrit word akasha, or akasha, however you pronounce that, translating to ether, sky, or atmosphere, or undifferentiated space. In classic Hindu philosophy, particularly within the Samkhya school, akasha is defined as the first and most fundamental of the 5 great elements, Mahabhutas, serving as the physical substrate of space and the medium through which sound waves travel. The transition from a physical etheric element to a universal memory repository occurred in the late 19th century through the founders of the Theosophical Society. Helena Blavatsky described indestructible tablets of astral light that record both the past and the future of human action, though she did not use the exact phrase Akashic records. The terminology was formalised by Alfred Percy Sinnett in Esoteric Buddhism, written in 1883, and popularised by Rudolf Steiner in his book The Chronicles of Akasha, wherein Steiner claimed to access the historical evolution of the Earth and the lost continents of Atlantis and Lemuria via this etheric field. In the 20th century, Edgar Cayce conceptualised these records as a cosmic supercomputer, linking the concept of the absolute human subconscious directly to the universal database. 4 culturally verifiable traditions of cosmic records. So a comprehensive analysis of historical texts reveals that the concept of a divine ledger is not unique to modern esotericism, but is rooted in ancient, independent and historically verifiable cultural traditions. So the first column you've got here is culture and tradition. The second column is textual sources and archaeology. So in Mesopotamia, which is the Sumerian and Babylonian culture, you've got Enuma Elish, temple hymns, cuneiform administrative records. In the Vedic and Buddhist Indian culture, you've got Rig Veda, Samkhya, sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, sutras, Pali Canon, and scriptures. And in the Judeo-Christian text, the Hebrew Bible, Exodus and Psalms, Book of Jubilees, Book of Enoch, and the New Testament Revelation. And in Islamic faith, you've got the Noble Quran, the Surahs, Yasin and Al-Buruj, Hadith literature. In Mesopotamia, cuneiform writing on clay tablets directly shaped the theological imagination. The tablets of destiny, the Tupi Simiati, were active instruments of absolute cosmic sovereignty. Whoever held them possessed extreme executive command over the structure of the universe. Similarly, the Sumerian gods of the Nungau declared herself the hoarder of the Imnam Tiala, the tablet of life, registering the actions of the righteous and the transgressions of the wicked. This bureaucratic moral framework evolved in post-exilic Judaism into the Sefer HaChaim, the Book of Life, and the Sefer Hazekrokono, the Book of Remembrance, in which divine entities inscribed human deeds. In rabbinic technology, these celestial books are opened on Rosh Hashanah to seal the temporal and eternal fates of humanity on Yom Kippur. In Islamic metaphysics, this concept culminated in Al-Lawa al-Mahfuz, the preserved tablet. The Quran portrays a universe that's fully calculated and documented, utilising the Arabic root Asher, I hope I'm saying all this shit right, I have no idea how to pronounce it, to describe mathematical predetermination and enumeration. The divine attribute of Al-Mushi, the one who computes and preserves, conceptualizes reality as a computed system running on a structurally secure, unalterable physical mathematical substrate. The modern myth of the Giza Hall of Records. To maintain historical accuracy, these technical traditions must be contrasted with the modern myth of the Hall of Records beneath the Great Sphinx of Giza. Popularised in the 1930s by Edgar Cayce, this narrative asserted that Atlantean refugees buried their compiled knowledge in a subterranean chamber near the Sphinx's right paw around 10,500 BCE. Although alternative historians have linked this theory with the Sphinx water erosion hypothesis and the Orion correlation theory, modern Egyptology has found no empirical evidence to support it. Intensive ground-penetrating radar, seismographic surveys and targeted core drillings have identified only natural limestone fissures, cavities and modern treasure-hunted tunnels, confirming that the physical Hall of Records remains a modern esoteric legend rather than an archaeologically verifiable site. They actually did find some shit, but don't tell anyone that, and if you do, don't tell them I told you. Declassified intelligence programs and speculatively engineered ancestral recall. The search for systems capable of accessing hidden memory, ancestral histories or universal databases has not been limited to mystical pursuits. During the Cold War, state intelligence apparatuses explored these concepts through rigorous, albeit highly speculative, research programs. So then you've got memory manipulation and biophysical theories under MKUltra. You hear about MKUltra a lot, really, and it's used in a lot of different cultures, and it's kind of like the conspiracy theorist crown jewels. Anyway, it says here that from 53 to 73, the CIA conducted Project MKUltra under the leadership of Sidney Gottlieb and the technical services staff, while popular media portrays devices like the Animus, a fictional machine that decodes physical DNA to project the sensory episodic memories of ancestors. Real-world intelligence programs focused on behavioural conditioning, chemical interrogation and memory alteration. However, declassified files demonstrate that intelligence agencies closely monitored contemporary biochemical hypotheses regarding memory. Speculative studies evaluated the theories of researchers like Dr. Edmund Dewin, who posited that nucleic acid complexes, DNA and RNA, might play a fundamental role not only in physical genetic memory but also in nervous memory. The CIA investigated whether memory patterns could be chemically encoded, transferred or erased by targeting the molecular structure of nucleic acids. Ultimately, the destruction of the majority of MKUltra files in 1973 by order of the director Richard Helms left the precise scope of these biophysical experiments shrouded in ambiguity. Through Gottlieb's declassified testimony, Gottlieb's declassified testimony reveals a deep institutional interest in biological memory modification. The gateway experience, cognitive access to the holographic universe. Instead of constructing physical machines to read genetic memory, military and intelligence researchers focus on accessing non-local information by synchronizing the human brain. In 1983, US Army Intelligence commissioned a technical assessment of the Monroe Institute's gateway experience. The resulting declassified report, authored by Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonnell, applied principles of quantum mechanics, theoretical physics, and neurophysiology to model how human consciousness can transcend spatial and temporal boundaries. The gateway process utilized binaural audio frequencies to induce brain hemisphere synchronization, or hemisync, by quieting the left hemisphere, the cognitive linear and analytical component of the mind, and the external sensory stimuli were allowed to pass directly into the non-verbal, pattern-orientated right hemisphere without logical screening. McDonald's analysis concluded that this technique allowed the synchronized brain to operate as a receiver, interacting with the universal hologram or collective unconscious. Under this model, space-time is not a barrier but a projection of deeper information structures. By altering its vibrational frequency, human consciousness could theoretically access non-local data, transcending linear time to retrieve historical or universal information. CRISPR as a real-world system of biological genetic memory. To contrast these speculative programs with established biology, the only verified genetic memory system that acts as a structural ledger of historical events is the prokaryotic CRISPR array. In bacteria and archaea, whatever that is, the adaptive immune mechanism functions as a biological archive. So you've got photospacer acquisition. That's when a bacterium survives a viral invasion. It cleaves short fragments of the invader's DNA, which they call photospacers. In genomic integration, these foreign DNA fragments are integrated into the host's CRISPR genomic arrays, serving as a permanent heritable genetic memory of the exposure. Transcription and cleavage, the array is transcribed into the mature CRISPR RNAs, cRNA, which guide CAS proteins to recognize and destroy complementary viral targets during subsequent invasions. I've absolutely no idea what any of that shit I just read means. This molecular system demonstrates that biology can record historical events within a genomic sequence to protect future generations, though this mechanism records structural immunological history rather than conscious episodic experiences. So now we've got this section about non-coding DNA, epigenetic transmission, and ancestral traits. The hypothesis that humans might exhibit ancestral traits or memories through junk DNA requires a rigorous assessment of the molecular architecture of the genome and the mechanisms of epigenetic inheritance. The regulatory landscape of the non-coding genome. Historically, the term junk DNA was used to describe the 98 to 99% of the human genome that does not encode proteins. However, large-scale genomic projects like ENCODE have shown that this portion of the genome is actually a highly complex regulatory network. The non-coding genome contains several critical functioning elements. So you've got promoters, enhancers, and silencers. These elements act as physical binding sites for transcription factors, controlling where, when, and what to degree nearby or distant protein coding genes are expressed. So I read that terribly, didn't I? Insulators. These proteins prevent enhancers from activating inappropriate genes and maintain. So yeah, insulators. These proteins prevent enhancers from activating inappropriate genes and maintain the structural organization of the chromatin. Then you've got non-coding RNA genes. So a significant portion of non-coding DNA is transcribed into functional RNA molecules, including transfer RNAs, tRNAs, ribosomal RNAs, rRNAs, microRNAs, that's miRNAs, and long non-coding RNAs, incRNAs, which regulate translation, gene silencing, and cellular stability. Structural elements. Repetitive non-coding sequences form telomeres which protect chromosome ends during replication, and satellite DNA which forms the basis of centomeres and transcriptionally silent heterochromatin. Empirical evidence of trait inheritance, transgenerational epigenetics. So although non-coding DNA does not contain written logs of ancestral thoughts, the regulation of both coding and non-coding DNA can transmit parental environmental adaptations to offspring through epigenetics. Epigenetic modifications alter gene expressions without changing the primary ATCG nucleotide sequence. The most compelling mammalian model of this phenomenon is the research conducted by Brian Dias and Kerry Ressler at Emory University. They conditioned male mice to fear the acetophenone, a cherry blossom scent, by pairing the odour with a mild foot shock. This fear conditioning altered the neural architecture of the mice's brains, increasing the physical area of the olfactory bulb dedicated to dissecting acetophenone. Remarkably, the untrained offspring and grand offspring showed a heightened behavioural sensitivity and startle response to acetophenone, despite having never encountered the scent of their ancestors. Using in vitro fertilization and cross-fostering, the researchers confirmed that this trait was biologically transmitted through gametes rather than through social communication. Analysis of the sperm DNA from the conditional fathers and their offspring revealed specific undermethylation of the something or other gene, which encodes the odorant receptor sensitive to acetophenone. This chemical alteration allowed the gene to be transcribed more easily, preparing the offspring's nervous systems for a threat experienced by their ancestors. Biological barriers to ancestral memory in mammals. While the Dias-Ressler model demonstrates that environmental sensitivities can be inherited, biological mechanisms prevent the transmission of complex episodic ancestral memories. So you've got germline reprogramming. Mammalian development involves two major rounds of global epigenetic erasure. The first occurs in the zygote immediately after fertilization, and the second occurs in the primordial germ cells, PGCs, during embryonic development. These erasure phases strip away DNA methylation and the second occurs in primordial germ cells during embryonic development. These erasure phases strip away DNA methylation, histone marks, and small RNAs to restore cellular totipotency. Reprogramming escapees. Only a tiny fraction of the genome, such as specific transposons, for example IAP elements in mice, and certain imprinted loci, evades this reprogramming. These escapees are rare, and there's no evidence that they can preserve complex multi-sensory cognitive experiences. Then you've got loss of signal. In mammals, epigenetic signals are generally diluted or lost after the generation once the direct environmental stimulus is removed, unlike in plants or C. elegans, which lack a strict germline barrier. Thus, while humans may inherit general physiological predispositions, stress sensitivities, or metabolic tunings from their ancestors, the biology of germline reprogramming prevents the transmission of detailed autobiographical episodic memories. Machine-mediated genomic decoding and information theoretic frontiers. So the question of whether humanity can design a machine to decode the regulatory genome to access its underlying purpose or to retrieve its historical data akin to the Akashic record is actively being explored through artificial intelligence and biological foundation models. So the biological foundation models, the EVO2 architecture, the most advanced technology for decoding the non-coding genome, is represented by large-scale genomic foundation models like EVO2. Developed by the Arc Institute, EVO2 is a biological language model trained on Open Genome 2, the dataset containing 9.3 trillion nucleotides from 128,000 species across all domains of life, including humans, plants, bacteria, and archaea. I don't know what the fuck any of that shit is, but if you do, then, well, yeah. What the fuck that is, really. At its core, EVO2 relies on striped hyena 2 hybrid architecture. So by combining multi-head attention with short, medium, and long implicit convolution operators, the model efficiently processes long genetic sequences up to a context length of 1 million nucleotides with single nucleotide resolution. To interpret the model's internal representations, researchers utilize sparse autoencoders. These SAE extract features associated with specific biological functions, demonstrating that EVO2 has autonomously learned the syntax of DNA. The model can map splice junctions, predict protein folding structures, and identify the regulatory motifs within non-coding DNA, predicting the impacts of genetic mutations with over 90% accuracy. These computational systems are decoding the functional purpose of non-coding DNA, transforming it from a theoretical mystery into an engineered programming language. Thermodynamic and information theoretic limits of DNA as a ledger. Although models like EVO2 can decode and generate DNA sequences with high precision, physical and information theoretic principles prevent the human genome from serving as an episodic memory database or a portal to an Akashic style record. The neurology of memory storage. So conscious episodic memories are not stored as nucleotide sequences in the DNA of neurons. Long-term episodic memories are encoded and retrieved through dynamic non-local changes in synaptic plasticity across distributed networks in the cerebral cortex. When a brain recalls an event, it reconstructs the pattern of neural firing that occurred during the original experience. DNA does not act as a recording medium for this synaptic activity. It provides only the structural blueprint required to build the neurons and synapses that form these networks. Shannon entropy and physical capacity constraints. The maximum theoretical information capacity of the human genome is strictly limited by its physical strength. The human haploid genome contains approximately 3.2 times 10 to the 9 base pairs. That's a lot. Because each base pair consists of one or four nucleotides, A, T, C and G, it can represent a maximum of 2 bits of information. The total raw storage capacity for a single human gamete can be calculated using Shannon's channel capacity limits. Let me know if you know what that means. This physical limit demonstrates that a single gamete carries roughly 800 megabytes of raw data. Storing high-fidelity, multi-sensory, episodic life experiences of even a single human lifetime requires petabytes of data, 10 to the 15 bytes. Attempting to store lived histories of thousands of generations within an 800 megabyte genomic sequence is mathematically impossible, even before accounting for the genomic space required to maintain basic biological functions. Noise, mutation and evolutionary purging. The biological systems are subject to constant thermodynamic noise, chemical degradation and genetic mutations. For a biological system to transmit detailed, non-essential historical records across millions of years, it would require massive energy-intensive error correction mechanisms to prevent the data from degrading. In accordance with popular genetics, natural selection rapidly purges non-functional or metabolic heavy DNA sequences to optimize organismal fitness. If a species is attempted to carry petabytes of non-essential historical data, the evolutionary cost would be prohibitive, leading to the rapid deletion or mutation of those sequences. So in conclusion, a rigorous scientific evaluation of historical declassified and genomic data leads to several clear conclusions. First one is verifiable cosmic ledgers. So the concept of a universal record is a cross-cultural archetype. At least 4 major historical cultures independently documented systems of cosmic ledgers: the Mesopotamian tablets of destiny, the Vedic Buddhist Akashic, the Judeo-Christian Book of Life, and the Islamic preserved tablet. Declassified programs and fictional tech. No declassified government programs have successfully developed physical memory interfaces like the Animus. Instead, programs like the CIA's Gateway process investigated out-of-body information retrieval by synchronizing brain hemispheres, bypassing the physical genome entirely to interact with speculative holographic models of the universe. Then you've got the function of non-coding DNA. So the term junk DNA is obsolete. Non-coding DNA functions as a highly complex regulatory system that controls gene expression and cellular architecture. While epigenetic mechanisms can transmit parental environmental adaptations such as olfactory sensitivities to offspring, mammalian germline reprogramming erases the vast majority of these marks, preventing the inheritance of complex episodic ancestral memories. Technological and physical limits. Humanity has developed advanced genomic foundation models like EVO2 that use hybrid neural architectures to decode the functional purpose of non-coding DNA. However, physical and information theoretic principles, specifically the neurobiology of memory storage, the 800 megabyte Shannon entropy limit of human DNA, and evolutionary selection against non-functional sequences, confirm that the human genome cannot store episodic ancestral histories or act as a biological portal to an Akashic record. So I guess we've got to take that at face value, and I'm going to call my brother back now because I'm 22 minutes late for tea, and he's a very good lad, and I hope he's had a good day in the warmth today. Thanks for watching my shit YouTube video, and thanks for everything. Cheers.